So I'm Kaylee Ibarra, and I'm going to be here today with Lindsay Thorpe to tell you about anxiety disorders. So first of all, everyone experiences anxiety, but not everyone has the disorder. Anxiety is very common. Almost everyone has felt it. It can be identified by the feelings of nervousness, being tense or unable to relax, and physical symptoms accompanied by this, like getting sweaty, shaking, getting nauseous, things like that. Anxiety disorders are several disorders that have symptoms of intense and even debilitating anxiety that interferes with everyday life. Some disorders of this category are generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, panic disorder, and phobias. According to data from 2020, over 40 million adults in the U.S., which is 19.1%, have anxiety disorder. Additionally, approximately 7 of children aged 3 to 7 experience issues with anxiety each year. Most people develop these symptoms before the age of 21. So, for neuroscience, I'm going to talk about the biological components of anxiety disorders. So, available clinical genetic studies show a considerable heritability, which is 30 to 67% of anxiety disorders. GABA system, serotonin, and norepinephrine seem to have a part in the development of anxiety disorders. There also has been studies that point to several vulnerability genes, which can lead to behavioral inhibition, anxiety sensitivity, increased startle reactivity, or dysfunctional corticolimbic activity during emotional processing. In biological perspectives of anxiety, there are 3 conditions which elicit anxiety. One is overstimulation. This is being flooded with information, too much to handle at one time. There's cognitive incongruity, which is difficult reconciling with some event in your past. The last one is going to be response unavailability, which is the difficulty handling a tough situation. So, with anxiety disorders, psychotherapy and medications such as SSRIs, benzodiazepines, and even medical cannabis has been shown to aid in anxiety disorders.
A disorder characterized by persistent and excessive worry about life circumstances. Next, we have obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, an anxiety disorder characterized by repetitive, intrusive thoughts and need to engage in certain behaviors in order to control anxiety. Then we have panic disorder, feelings of an impending doom and the need to escape that may occur in the context of anxiety disorders and depression. Last, we have phobias. A phobia is a type of anxiety disorder. It is a strong, irrational fear of something that possesses little or no actual danger. Generalized anxiety disorder. GAD is a disorder that causes excessive worry about things in life. This worry lasts for 6+ months in extreme cases. The general feeling of anxiety does not include one of the main thing that you have to worry about, but there are certain triggers that can make it worse. GAD affects 6.8 million adults in U.S., and women are twice as likely to be affected by GAD than men are. GAD is characterized as a free-floating anxiety for a reason. This is because people with GAD cannot deal or know how to deal with the anxiety that they are faced with. On the right side, there's like a little picture of GAD, just showing like the symptoms that people go through when they have GAD. Next, we have OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. There are two parts of OCD. There's obsessive, which is the recurrent or persistent preoccupation with something. And then there is the compulsion part, which is an impulse experienced as irresistible, which can consist of tasks like turning the door handle 3 times, not stepping on cracks on the sidewalk, or even opening the car door 3 times in a row before entering the car. Common obsessions for OCD is excessive cleaning and paranoia of dirt, germs, the thought or action of something bad happening, and also things have to be perfect and in tip-top shape in order to please someone with OCD. One thing that I figured out when I was reading up on OCD is that if something is not perfect or to the liking. It has to be repeated multiple times. Most OCD symptoms start in the adolescent years of life. There's also evidence that it's more likely that you will get OCD if people in your family have it as well. There are treatments and medications for OCD, showing results of about 7 out of 10 people with OCD will benefit from either medication or exposure and response prevention. Usually, they see within that time period of treatment or medication that their symptoms of OCD are reduced by 40 to 60%, which is actually really good. Next, for OCD, we have the symptoms, like the basic symptoms, what you go through in the order. So it starts with obsessions, that leads to anxiety, that leads to compulsions, and then after you get over and do the things that you're compulsive about, you do have temporary relief, but it starts over pretty quickly. So it's just like a never-ending cycle.
So next is panic disorders. A panic disorder is a disorder characterized by repeated panic attacks. The fear of having these panic attacks lead to worry and can become dysfunctional. Panic attacks are episodes of intense feelings of fear and terror that trigger severe physical reactions. So these aren't normal, like feeling nervous, anything like that. These are intense nausea, hyperventilation, racing heartbeat, fear of dying, dizziness, etc., etc. These can come on pretty quickly and with no apparent reason. For this reason, they can be very frightening and exhausting. On average, 1 out of every 75 people might experience panic disorder. It usually appears during teens or early adulthood, and there seems to be a connection with major life events like moving out or having a child, getting married. There also seems to be a genetic predisposition, so if a family member of yours has this, you're more likely to develop it in a stressful time. Women are also twice as likely to develop this disorder than men. There's no apparent reason, so yeah. So with panic disorder, it comes in a cycle. So first is the stimuli, which causes anxiety sensations, and that is things like the heart racing, sweating, trembling, things like that. And then from there, you start to have catastrophic beliefs about these sensations. So in this case, you'll think, oh my God, I'm dying, I'm losing control, I can't do this. And so when you do this, then it increases these sensations even more. So that heart rate you had before is now even more intense. And so at that point, when you have those full-blown symptoms, that's what's called a panic attack. So after all of that, normally panic attacks end, but then you spend the meantime worrying about another panic attack. So it just becomes a whole cycle, because even worrying about another panic attack can set off a panic attack. So can this be treated? Well, there is treatments to panic disorder. Most specialists agree that a combination of cognitive and behavioral therapies are the best treatment for panic disorder. Medications are sometimes used. Antidepressants and SSRIs have shown to help those with panic disorder. Cognitive restructuring is very important in panic disorder treatment to change the negative, unrealistic thoughts into healthier, realistic views on life and panic attacks especially. It is important to get treatment for a panic disorder, or it could turn into a phobia. So next we'll talk about phobias. So phobias are persistent, excessive, unrealistic fear of an object, person, animal, activity, or situation. This may lead the individual to change their lifestyle to avoid the things they fear. In a study, there's even a woman who gave away a 6-figure job because it was 5 miles too far from her comfort zone, and instead stuck with $11 an hour. And things like this happen all the time. The APA recognizes 3 types of phobias. Social phobia, or social anxiety. This is profound fear of public humiliation and being judged by others. Next, agoraphobia, the fear of situations it would be difficult to escape. So this is commonly mistaken for the fear of small spaces, when in reality it can be a small space, it could be a place with not a lot of doors, things like that. Lastly, there are specific phobias. This is an intense irrational fear of a specific trigger. So the 5 specific phobia categories: animals, dogs, cats, medical, like shots or blood; nature, the ocean, things like that; situational, like flying; and any other specific phobia. So exposure and cognitive behavioral therapy are the most effective treatments. Medication has been used, but specialists do recommend just exposure and cognitive behavioral therapy. So if you can see here in this survey done, the top 5 phobias in America as of 2020, the first one is failure, which I think says a lot with how society is today. The second, blood. The third, water. Fourth, intimacy. Fifth, spiders. And sixth, the outside. And so in this next slide, I found something pretty neat. I found a survey that this security company does every year that shows what phobias people look up the most. And I found some pretty interesting things. If you look at Texas, the thing we search up the most is the outside. That has shocked some people recently. So we've also seen some changes about these phobias, especially during the corona time. As of 2020, anthropophobia, the fear of people, made up 22% of all phobia search this volume. This is 5% the amount of searches in 2019, so it was increased exponentially throughout COVID. And also the amount of states who searched aviophobia, the fear of flying, the most doubled, which I think also makes sense in considering the flight mandates and things during Corona time. Some other things I found pretty interesting: California, which is one of the biggest hubs for influencers, home to over 14,000, was the only state to have this biggest fear of social media. And then lastly, Massachusetts residents fear failure the most, but they boast the highest percentage of college graduates in the country. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. So yeah, thank you for watching.